Last week, we talked about the Guardians' Major League pitching staff in 2023, which gave us a lot of good stories, a lot of weird circumstances at the end of the year. We didn't get to the minor league version of the pitching factory in 2023. What did that look like? And can one of those pitchers one day give the Guardians their next greatest player to be named later ever?
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. Use the code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's JASE medical.com. Justin is back. We are going to dive into minor league pitching. There is a lot of players to discuss. Before we do that, I just want to quickly throw out, I think it's funny that Seattle is trying to add every single Ohio-based outfielder. Justin and I kind of had our own debates on this. I kind of feel like, I know Luke Raley is going to regress something hardcore. I would have loved to see Cleveland use some of that infield depth to take a risk on a guy who would have been second on this team in home runs, even with the regression. But I also understand not taking that gamble. I do think I have no idea what Seattle is doing. I think right now they're having the worst offseason. I'm just going to say hot take. 3 straight trades with as much as people want to complain about Cleveland. And yes, Cal Quantrill was a deal where they cut money, but they then added Barlow for free, essentially. Well, not for free. NEL had value. But Seattle's made 3 straight trades to make their team worse, just to save money.
Not looking great, especially after they spent all that money on Luis Castillo a couple of years ago for the trade, and pitching looks so good, and they're just cutting everything. I feel bad for Mariners fans. I feel bad because last year when we were doing the season preview, you were talking about how the Mariners were going to regress very badly in 2023, and all the Mariners fans came for us, and you were like, okay, we'll see. And their offense was pretty bad, and now it's about to be worse than it was a year ago. Yeah. So I'm sure, and I'm sure they've also realized it too. So I feel bad for them, but
it's a passionate fan base. Like our numbers go up I like when we face Seattle because our numbers go up because those fans are so passionate. Like I wish them well.
They're fun.
It's a fun group. As long as they're not facing the Guardians, I'm pulling for you guys, especially over Houston. But yeah, it's that's why I feel bad. Like this has got to be a frustrating offseason.
Yeah, it's frustrating enough for Cleveland, but I would say the Mariners are having a much worse one because especially since their division is wide open right now. Not that, not that the AL Central's never not wide open.
But the AL Central isn't. I thought it's quite a tough division. It's not.
Oh yeah, it's a real barn burner over here. 80. I don't know. I'm ready to say at this point. We'll see what happens on January. I'm on February 7th, but on January 7th, I'm ready to say that 86 wins might. What was it last year? Last year was 87 for the Twins. I would say 85 might even take it this year. I don't know. The way things are
closer to 81, like every day. I feel like
it's getting lower and lower. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
78 wins. You heard it here first. 78
wins. Well, hey, the Guardians would have still not made it last year, but the Tigers would have. But that second place finish was very important for the Tigers and very important for
them the first overall pick.
Yeah,
difference between 1st and 11th. I will say that again. I hope you enjoyed Friday's episode. Some really interesting draft prospects. I'm just going to take a second and throw that out there. It was kind of up and down in our overall watches. So if you didn't check it out and you want to know about power hitters in the system, power hitters,
Cleveland will definitely not draft.
I let under the radar power hitters. I did a whole episode. So every day are Bruce and every day are Kurt. You're always talking about power in the comments. Go listen to that episode if you missed it.
There you go. All right, well, we're going back to pitching again because we didn't have enough time last week to talk about the minor league pitchers in 2023, which is not really a surprise because 14 starting pitchers made a start for Cleveland in 2023 in the Major League roster, and some of them
87
came in September.
Starts by rookies. 87 starts.
That's still mind blowing. I'm going to go ahead and bet the under for 2024 on that. I don't know who the first one will be up in 2024. I assume it'll be Joey Cantillo, but 2023, I thought the best minor league pitcher for 2023 for Cleveland was Dion. Cantillo had a good year. he kind of fizzled out at the end. I think that was more of a product of it was his first full season pitching since 2019. Like, this is a guy who had not pitched a full season since 2019 since he's been with Cleveland. So 2020 obviously didn't pitch. 2021 he was hurt. 2022 he was hurt. Yeah, so he did get through a full season in 2023, which is what you want. I think he just kind of felt the effects of that at the end of the year. There was a bit of a velocity drop, and the stuff went down, and he got hit a little bit. But the positive for him is he was healthy all year, and he had electric stuff, and he made the futures game. He looked really good doing it.
His advanced data was good too when we looked at it. Like, his pitches looked like, strong.
He still doesn't give hard contact.
Yeah, he doesn't get hit hard. He misses. Like, control is the issue. If he can get his control, if he can just bring up the floor on that at all, it feels like Cantillo is potentially a mid-rotation starter.
Yeah, he's got enough pitches to do it. I mean, the fastball is now hit 95. He can now hit 97, which is amazing because when he came to Cleveland, he was like 89, 92, and he was topping out 94. In the futures game, he was throwing 97. So they've worked their magic there. He's always had a plus changeup. The curveball's gotten better with the added velocity to the point where it's probably his third best pitch now. And there's like a cutter slider in there too. That's okay for a fourth pitch, but he's got the stuff. I really like Cantillo a lot, and he's got the extension, and he's lurpy, or what do you call that? Not lurpy. What's the lanky?
Lanky. Where he's long and lanky, long and skinny. Yeah, and I liked him dating back to his days as a Hawaiian pitcher because he's also super young for his class too. So the late development makes sense. Like, he was a young.
He's still 23.
Yeah, and I said it at the time. I thought he was the number 2. I thought Arias was the centerpiece. I thought he was the number 2 piece in that trade because he's everything Cleveland finds ways to excel at. Like, all those things that line up with youth, with all the stuff was there, and now it's just a matter of health and what can happen with command.
Yeah, he had better walk totals in the earlier stage of the minors, and some of that could also just be more hitters chasing and. Giving him a little bit more free passes, but I think he can improve on that. I think it's reasonable to think about him being able to do that. But Will Dion, I think, had the best year of anybody, and nothing personal against Will Dion. I like Will Dion. I've talked to him several times for interviews, and he is really fun to watch pitch because I think he's a left-handed Josh Tomlin. That's really what I look at him as. He's a left-handed Josh Tomlin. Yeah, it worked for enough years with Josh Tomlin for sure. I mean, the problem is Dion is like 92 is where he's topping out at. He's one guy they have not added velocity for. We'll see what happens, but this is another guy who's got an above-average changeup, above-average curveball. There's a slider there that's gotten better too, and then the fastball is like a fringe. It's a pitch that he really cannot afford to throw that often, but the command is there, and the crazy thing too for his size, he's barely 6 foot if he's a 6 foot at all. Is he's made every start in the minors since he's been drafted. Like, he's gone out there and thrown innings. So not a guy you would expect size-wise to do that, but he's gone out there and put up innings.
I can't wait to see him in AAA. He is that guy where I want to see how he's doing what he's doing because, as you stated, his velocity should be getting hit. Like, it's just not like, what's the spin rate? He's not long. He said he's not the biggest guy, so it's not extension. Like, somehow his stuff is playing up and has always played up. And I agree with you. He was probably the pitcher that stood out most in terms of statistical performance for me in the minors. So I can't wait to see him in AAA just so I can get a full picture and figure out, like, can this continue on? Like, is there enough there, something to help explain the success so you can hopefully, have a depth starter or have you never have enough left-hand relievers. We know this well.
Yeah.
Like, Tomlin,
is he
when he left Cleveland.
Morgan?
Yeah. It's like when Tomlin left Cleveland, he was a good reliever for Atlanta for a few years, like 3 more years of his career where he was solid. He was their closer at one point for a short period of time, got to double-digit saves. But yeah, he's a guy who's kind of in the teens for me on my own personal draft prospect list. But he is the guy who I'm maybe most interested to see next year, just because we're going to get so much more information.
I'm interested in all the lefties next year. I'm interested in Cantillo to see if he can, like you said, improve the control. I want to see if Dion can keep us up in AAA. What's mind-blowing to me about Will Dion is that not only, like you said, should the velocity not work in theory, but it does because of the command and because of tunneling and the way he has a good pitch mix. But only 7 home runs allowed last year in 116 innings. Like, for a guy who throws 92 max, like he's really like 89, 90, 91. You would think that that's a guy who would be getting hit hard and would give a lot of home runs. Like Josh Tomlin, obviously that was his big thing, right? Like he was solid, but he was giving up home runs like every game. Will Dion, Will Dion in the minors, like he gave up 7 home runs this year. He gave up 9 last year. We'll see what happens in AAA in that Columbus ballpark, but you would think that'd be a guy that gives up a ton of home runs. Not really. And in his AA starts too, a 45% ground ball rate. That is pretty good. Like it's hard for ground balls to go over the fence. I know Cleveland tends to like the fly ball guys because most fly balls are harmless, but hey, when you're throwing 92, I think you want to keep the ball out of the air as much as possible. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens for Will Dion. A really nice kid too, by the way.
I'll throw this out there. His home and away splits were rather significant, and we know that is a very.
Okay, what was it?
Well, like so, I can't get great. He gave up 1 home run at home and 6 on the road, and his ERA was 1.51 at home and 3.14 on the road, which is still excellent. But you're seeing everything kind of spike up. It's hard to get good split data, but it does stand out that he had, a pretty significant jump in ERA and home runs when you.
Yeah, I'd have to look at some of the park factors on AA.
Yeah,
parks.
We know Akron's
is pretty pitcher friendly. Yeah,
yes.
But there are some, and then the Eastern League that are, as we know, like Reading. Like there are some very hitter friendly.
Reading's a high school park.
Yeah, so I'd be curious to see where those home runs came because Reading and Columbus are probably very similar in terms of park factors and home run factors. We'll see there. We got to talk about Parker Mess. We got to talk about Ryan Webb. We have to talk about some injured pitchers from last year as well, and some other under the radar guys we both like in the minor league pitching system. Before we get through today's episode, so stick with us. There's a lot to talk about. Before we get to all of that, the NFL season is wrapping up, but there is still time to get in on the great deal FanDuel has going on, especially right now. If you have not taken advantage yet and you're a new customer, congratulations. I think you waited for the right time to do it because all year it was if you put $5 on a moneyline bet and you won, you were going to get $150 in bonus bets from FanDuel if you're a new customer. Now, you've waited it out. You've waited out the right deal. Now it's $5 on any moneyline bet. Win or lose, you get $150 in bonus bets from FanDuel for new customers. So $150 going into your FanDuel account, win or lose if you're a new customer, if you just throw down $5 on a moneyline bet. If you're not a fan of the moneyline bet, which I personally am not, but free money is free money if you like to have fun and gamble responsibly. But otherwise, there's live same game parlays, which will be fun in the playoffs coming up. They have new bets in what's their new Explore tab, and you can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. The best way to find what everybody else is doing in the parlays any game day. So there's more to do there. Player props is always one of my favorite ones as well. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make that first bet an easy field goal or a layup. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL.
Make it as easy as it was to face Noah Syndergaard during his time with the Guardians last year.
That seems very hard to do. There's a reason he is out of work. There was like a minute in the offseason there where they were talking about like, oh, some teams are interested in Noah Syndergaard. And I'm like, interested about what? Like, he's an interesting person, but
I hope he figures it out. It was just sad. Like, his comments just made me sad. I want him to recover. I just want to state that right now. I want him to recover. He doesn't even have to get back. Just be a good 4-5. Like, just
go back to being a good reliever, even a good reliever.
Yeah,
he was fun when he was healthy. Let's wrap up some healthy arms too. Surprisingly, last year, like obviously Cleveland hasn't until Logan Allen came up. Cleveland just has not produced any left-handed starters, unless we're going to count the other Logan Allen. But last year,
who was the last one before that? Was it like who was the last successful lefty
from the system or in general?
I mean, it was Scott Kazmir. Was
Scott Kazmir? Yeah, there was Scott Kazmir.
I mean, are we talking like Scott Lewis? Like success, we could argue, but like it's been a while.
But last year that wasn't the case. Yeah, so we talked about Cantillo, we talked about Will Dion. I thought Parker Messick had a really good year, and I know we've had to talk about why this guy was he was in low A, and he should have been in low A, and some of that was due to they didn't have enough arms for that level, which is their own fault, and it's a bad way to develop, I think.
If he's, I don't know, like, and then my counter view, which I just did what everyone loves, interrupting you, but it's like if he is good, he should have been able to push that. Like, go sign someone off the street. Go, I know Jaime Arias was suspended, so like they didn't have that guy who was the up and down play. But you need to, if he was with as good as he was, one of the most polished guys in the 2022 draft class, he should have moved so much quicker. And I'm not going to understand. I don't understand why that didn't happen. That's one of my big head scratchers mine through the minors last year. Like,
yeah, because he
make your own backfill. Make your own backfill if you need to. Like, don't let a good pitcher sit in the background because you don't know what to do.
And this is a product of having a shorter draft too. I will say that's part of it. Because Parker Messick easily could have been a Double-A last year. If you start him at High A, where he probably belonged, he gets to Double-A last year, and gets to Triple-A this year. But now you're probably talking. There's still a chance he gets to Triple-A at the end of this year anyway. Because
I bet he does.
Double-A.
I bet he does.
But the velocity was up a little bit. He was up to 93, 94 this year. I really like the slider. The changeup obviously is plus. He definitely has gotten himself into better shape. So there is that. I feel like that the athleticism is helping there because he has worked on that part of things. He just has a really lot of pitchability. He seems like I want to say a left-handed, like Savali-ish pitcher. He's probably a 4 or 5 at the end of the day, but as a lefty and a guy who can make starts and limit the walks, I think he'll be just fine in that role. And then
I think the bottom line on him before we get into Webb was, if we're just being 100% honest, you and I got reports, you and I talked to people, he was viewed as out of shape at Florida State. So they took a gamble on a guy who was there in round 2 in spite of his production because he was viewed as out of shape. So
that is a thing that I don't want to say it's a thing, it's a trend for Cleveland, but
they are taking out of shape guys.
They have taken some of those guys. Yeah. Because and that's not an unfair thing to bet on. I mean,
no, it's like anything else. Like they were looking for guys who were hurt or guys who were undersized, trying to find ways to find the market inefficiency, and this might be the new one.
Yeah, if they can get guys into better shape and that improves their stuff, and maybe that works out. So that is an interesting and efficient way to go. Ryan Webb was part of the 2021 draft class. So obviously with Gavin Williams, with Tanner Bybee, with I'm drawing a blank here. Who else we got?
Trenton Denholm, Nate Casey, Jake Miller, who was another guy who was hurt, who we really haven't had a chance to see much of.
So Webb had Tommy John, so he's I think he already turned 25, or he will turn 25 here.
He's older.
In short order. Yeah, he'll be 25 by the time opening day rolls around this year. He'll get to Double-A for the first time, so he's a year behind. So Cleveland needs to be aggressive with him in the coming year. But towards the end of the year, I thought he was fantastic.
AFL in particular.
Yeah, he led the AFL in strikeouts, which, the AFL is the AFL, but it's a hitter-friendly league. And he is older. But, when you lead the league in strikeouts, that says something. And towards the end of the year, he had 10 strikeouts and 3 walks in his final 12 innings of work. I thought he got better as the year went on, I thought was a sign for him that the velocity would already come back and the stuff was coming back. I wouldn't be surprised if 2024 is a big year for Ryan Webb. I guess I'll throw that as one of my predictions now, but I really like
last year was going to be
for him.
He was too. Yeah. It just health was still the issue for him. Took him a while to come all the way back.
Yeah, he had a core muscle injury.
It was a new injury, as opposed to the ones that have been holding him back. He was a guy who University of Georgia has had a lot of guys kind of underperform. Cole Wilcox, Emerson Hancock, who we were talking about before the show began. The highest draft pick ever, University of Georgia, is Derek Lilliquist. Yes, that Derek Lilliquist, who was, I believe, the 3rd overall pick to the Braves in mid-'80s. But to get back on point here, he has the ability, it looks like, that year to have been a potential first-round pick, and then health held him back. And health is still holding him back. And, hey, that's the story of the lefties in this system in some regard, is health for some of them is holding him back. But when you see a guy excel in an environment that is not friendly for him to excel in, that stands out to me, I should say.
Yeah, age or not, for sure. There was other lefties in the system, too, that weren't quite as good. I mean, Steven Hajar is interesting. If he can ever throw strikes.
Does he know
Rodney
where the
Boone,
strike zone is?
No. Rodney Boone can barely throw 88. I mean, we talk about Will Dion not being able to throw above 92. I don't know if I've ever seen Rodney Boone throw a pitch over 90 miles an hour, but he's got a great big changeup. A lot of other guys were injured last year. We'll talk about them a little bit and what has to happen to them in 2024, and just how much more exciting that can make the system at their comeback in 2024. And we'll talk about some other under-the-radar arms from 2023 before we wrap up today's episode. And, of course, we will have to discuss the end of the career for a Guardians legend.
I got a script here for Jace Medical. I'm throwing it out the window. And why am I going to throw it out the window? Because I used my Jace case. You've all heard me hacking and coughing. You can hear Justin not being well. We have both suffered from sinus infections. And here's the thing. My sinus infection got so bad, it was waking me up in the middle of the night. It was giving me headaches. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't doing anything well. If I went to my doctor, it was going to be $275 just to go and see my doctor, because copays are or it's not copay, it's just, high deductible insurance. That's just how my life is. Instead, I went upstairs, opened my J's case. I used the complete cycle because I've had so many sinus infections. I know that like when they get this bad, I have to use the medication. I knew what the medication was. I went up, I used it, and it's cheaper to buy a J's case than it is to go see my doctor. And that's what you have to find out for you and look at. But 100%, I did this before Christmas. My sinus infection was done by the time the holidays got here, but I went and used J's case, and it allows you have to, know your life, know your setting, but you talk with the doctor, they review everything. And I advised another teacher in my district who needed this because they didn't want to have to pay. It was cheaper to go through Jace and get them what you need rather than have to go to a doctor and get that prescription. And if this sounds like something that could benefit you, please head to jacemedical.com. Use the code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. I'm going to go get more antibiotics from them. I'll be honest, because I know I'm going to need it again for my sinus infection. It happens. So go to jacemedical.com today.
I learned the hard way last week. That's why I was out. I had a sinus infection, and
that's the worst.
I paid a lot more for my copay for urgent care than I would have paid for a Jace case. So don't be like me. Get that Jace case, and there you go. See, real life applications. Other injuries from last year, more serious than the sinus
Justin
infection.
Campbell first or second?
Oh, geez. Yeah. Well, Daniel Espino, by the way.
Yeah.
He only turned 23, by the way, this past week. He turned 23, I think, on Saturday, I want to say. I gotta look it up because I tweeted out a
happy birthday
old video I had of him. Well, just an old highlight video I had put together of him. He just turned 23 on everyone's favorite thing, a drum roll on a podcast, the 5th. So that would have been Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I looked it up. So the average age of a pitcher or a player in AA last year was 24. So he's still a year younger than the average age of a player in AA last year. So that, in theory, he'll still go into this year a year younger than the average player in AA. So he's posting all these videos on his Instagram and talking about how, looking like he's working out, he's throwing, looks healthy. We'll see. I need to see him pitch in a game. I need to hear him throwing bullpens in Goodyear. I'm actually going to spring training this year. I think it's the end of February I'm going. So I don't know if he'll be there or not yet. And Cleveland apparently is like Fort Knox when it comes to the backfield. So I'm not even sure I'll be able to get a look at him, but I'm gonna ask around the best.
If we hear that Justin gets arrested for scaling some walls, we'll know why.
Yeah, our old friend Joe Koblitz used to, for Burning River baseball, he used to do that. Not scaling the wall. he used to put
get arrested. Is that what you're saying? I'm kidding.
No, he used to put his camera up against the fences, and he was there. Like, he was pretty inconspicuous. He had gotten told to move a couple times because, I don't know, Cleveland's very weird. I've heard that, like, you can, like the Padres, you can basically see everything that's going on in the backfield there. Like, you can go. I had a friend that told me he watched Fernando Tatis go play in a minor league game last year, and on the backfields in San Diego's camp. And Cleveland, you can see almost like nothing when it comes to minor league stuff. So I don't know. Well, I'll do my best to bring back some intel, but I need to hear him. I need to hear reports that he is pitching. He's throwing bullpens. He's pitching in games. He's not reporting any injuries. Like, I need to, Daniel Espino is a workout warrior. He is a guy who is lauded for his training. He takes his stretching very seriously, the flexibility. And I give him all the credit in the world for that. But I just need to hear that, yeah, he's throwing bullpens. He's pitching in B games or simulated games. He's not reporting any pain. And then I'll start to get excited about that again. But man, it's easy to forget just how good this guy was, considering he hasn't pitched in 2 years.
He was the top pitching prospect in baseball a year ago.
Yeah. Just think of how exciting this system gets. Like, the other day you were talking about how many systems can graduate Gavin Williams and Logan Allen and Tanner Bybee and Bo Naylor and still be good. Not many can. Like the Orioles maybe right now could do something like that. But like if you add a healthy Daniel Espino back to this system next year, I mean, there's a lot of fun things you can start thinking about with the system. Justin Campbell, I'm very curious to see what happens to him next year. So he didn't have Tommy John. He had like some sort of weird ulnar fracture. I have to look up the exact injury. It wasn't Tommy John, but it was weird. But he's already throwing again. He's on track to have a normal spring training. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I thought he could have been Cleveland's second best pitching prospect after, the wave of the big three plus Espino.
Yeah, and he was one of those guys. You and I both had around 11 or 12, and again, a system that still had the big three arms plus Logan Allen. Right, Logan Allen was the afterthought of those big three. Listen, when I profiled Oklahoma State, I talked about how he's the perfect Guardians arm in that draft year. It was one of my first YouTube shows. You can go back and watch. I've got some YouTube videos when I first started. They have like 5 to 10 views. That might be one of them. But all the way through, like he is a guy who stood out, and it's just unfortunate timing because he is a big guy, great control. Just he is a guy who needed to add, and he didn't get any ads when he was at Oklahoma, but he was a pitcher. He just needed that. So the unfortunate thing is he lost that first year to get those ads, and hopefully he'll add some velocity and keep that command and control that made him like a borderline first round value.
I thought one of my predictions last year was for him to become a top 100 prospect. So I thought he could do that. So we'll see. Jacob Zibin had Tommy John. He should be on track to have a normal 2024. And then Dylan DeLucia also had Tommy John. I'm very curious to see what happens with him. I think Dylan DeLucia is one of those guys that might fall under the radar too. That's worth keeping an eye on.
There are a lot of people who really liked his profile a year ago, just in terms of like what he could do as a pitcher and those secondary offerings. And for those who don't remember Jacob Zibin, this team saved $1 million to sign him. They gave him a lot like that's in the 10th round. I want to say it's like that is more money than most anyone gets in the 10th round. They really believed in him. He was a young ver of the class, very much one of those Guardians types. So we'll have to see how that goes for them with this type. But those guys are all really interesting injured players we're hoping will step up this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to get an eye on him. Should be at High A Lake County at some point. Arms for 23, I really liked. I'll just throw these couple out there real quick because we're getting to the end of the episode. But I really liked Ross Carver. The numbers don't look great, but the strikeouts are there. And if he can get a little more control, I really feel like that's a mid-rotation type arm there. I would not sleep on Ross Carver. Could end up being a complete nothing, but he missed bats. I really like the stuff. He can throw 95. He's got an array of secondaries that I really like. I still like Jack Leftwich. He was not healthy at times last year, but he was still throwing 95. I still think he has good stuff. So I'm interested to see what he can do. Outside of that, though, I don't know. Like, I don't think Hunter Stanley works as a starter, but he was interesting at times. And Trenton Denholm, you and I both like Trenton Denholm a lot. He's an undersized guy who still needs to add. He's added some velocity, but some people were saying, oh, he's throwing 95. I saw Trenton Denholm throw like 3 games last year. Right? Oh yeah, totally. No, well, I don't know about that, but I saw him make a couple starts in Lake County last year. I didn't see anything above 91 or 92. So yeah,
the maintaining has been the biggest issue with him, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens to him.
I'm curious about Jake Miller, who I mentioned, just because again he's been hurt. He was a guy they essentially gave every leftover dollar to get signed out of the 20th round. His younger brother Cole was just got a 7-figure bonus to the Athletics. His dad played in the NFL, very athletic family, good bloodlines. Just got hurt. I'd like to see what Miller can do. They gave him a significant amount And then, from last year's class, Jacob Bresnahan kind of was an interesting player just in terms of the more we read, the more both of us liked. And I just keep waiting for Davis Sharp to make that step forward. It hasn't happened yet, but his stuff is enough that we hear such positive reports. And last year, the promotion to Double-A, he wasn't necessarily bad, but I'd like to see a few more missed bats. I'd like to see him improve on things a little bit more. He's kind of a fringe guy who I think could be a major league talent. So I'd like to see him kind of, get a little bit more of growth and jump. And then I honestly think, we talked about size. The Tugboat is someone to watch. The Tugboat missed bats in Cape Cod. He is listed at 6'1", 270. Kids in college sometimes eat very poorly. Set them up with a nutrition plan, work on certain things, have personal trainers, all these things when you're a professional. Tugboat's already proved that he can miss bats and be effective. If they can help him with his weight, he could be someone to watch. We are always people to watch. And yes, I understand the humor of me saying someone needs to work on their weight. That's fine. Thank you all for joining us, rating, reviewing, downloading. It helps. Make sure that you are commenting, hitting the bell, and all that fun jive. We want to keep the party going. What's coming up?
Well, we need to talk about Michael Brantley. We didn't have time to talk about Michael Brantley today, so we'll do that in an episode this week. We still have episodes for Let's Make a Deal. I believe we still need to get through the
4
AL East
divisions.
Yeah, AL East, NL East. We've done the Centrals. No, we did the NL Central. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We've done the Wests. So we need to do the East and the AL Central. So I don't know. That might be a weird one. And then we still have outfield and relief pitching to do. Everyone's favorite parts of the 2023 team to review. We're going to get to those still. Everyone will love those.
I'm sure it'll be a fun time. Thank you all again. Make sure you are tuning in every day, and go Guardians, go.